Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday wisdom session with us. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for taking the time to practice with us all. And thank you just for everything, for paying forward. I always would like to invite you to start off to just come back to this moment. You know, our days often can be quite chaotic. We lose in touch with the present moment, with losing touch with ourselves,
Nice to see you.
our body, our mind. So just invite you to come back to what's happening for you right now, what's happening around you, how do you feel? And just like a sense of appreciation for this present moment. This moment will never come back again. And this session will never come back again. So with that in mind, we'll get started. So today we have Robert Tomic joining us to talk about with every mistake, we must surely be learning karma and the search for happiness. That's a great title.
That's from George Harrison.
Oh, okay.
With every mistake, we must surely be learning. Still my guitar gently weeps. Oh, yeah.
Hello. Yeah. I think it is good to know with every mistake, surely you must be learning, because there's a lot of like second and third arrows often we make a mistake and it's like, oh God, I can't believe I did that. So love to learn about, you know, how this sentence relates with karma and our search for happiness. Very looking forward to this session. And also this is a follow-up session from Robert's previous meditation session. So we have meditation on Mondays and he delivered a really wonderful session. And then we couldn't finish talking about karma. So today we get to learn all about karma, which is wonderful. So a little bit about Robert. He's been practicing Tibetan Buddhism for past 30 years, wherein he has received teachings and empowerment from all 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism, both in Australia and overseas. For 10 years, Robert has taught introductory level Tibetan Buddhism to any and all, whether in people's homes or in classroom setting, who are genuinely interested to learn and apply the unique fundamental steps that can undo the confusion of living in seemingly contradictory world. Tibetan Buddhism, even in its simplest form, has the ability to change us into proactive participants who clearly understand how precious this life is and how fulfilling it can become. Wonderful. And so about this session, we'll have Robert will be talking for the Dharma talk for the session, the 90 minutes, but he has generously offered his time after the session. If you have any questions, you're welcome to stay back and have a conversation. He said he would stay here until midnight. So without further ado, over to you, Robert.
So thank you very much for everybody for coming here in person and those in the studio audience, so to speak. As per usual, the most important thing before we start any Dharma teaching, in order to counteract the bias that we perceive, that we interact with on a daily basis, on a moment-by-moment basis, actually. In order to counteract that, please check your motivation as to why you are here. In this example, please be mindful of not so much the person, not to look at the person and judge the person, in this case myself, but to listen to the words. And then when you're listening to the words, listen to the meaning of the words. And then for those of you who are even more finicky and scholastic in Buddhism, not to listen to the interpretive meaning, but to listen to the definitive meaning of the words. So this is meant for you in order to counteract any bias that you may have and not to be judging the Dharma on the actual person themselves. So I'm not asking for respect from anyone, but I am asking people to be respectful of the Buddha Dharma. So if somehow you think there is a separation between me and the Dharma, and that what I'm saying is only strictly just an intellectual understanding or whatever you may think, that is something that is your karmic obligation. But I am asking people to be respectful of the Dharma and therefore to check your motivation, that even if you're going to be here for 5 minutes and listen to just for 5 minutes, that 5 minutes will be of benefit to you. So right off the bat, when I open my mouth, you're being asked to change something about yourself that you usually don't change in everyday life. Okay? And that is that now I'm going to listen to the Dharma. I'm going to listen to these teachings in order to benefit myself and in order to benefit everyone else around me, directly or indirectly. So by practicing the Dharma, other people benefit from your practice, directly or indirectly. By simply changing your mind, you change the world. It's as simple as that. So in Buddhism, you could even say you change your mind, you change your heart. So by changing your mind, you change your perceptions. By changing your heart, you change your actions. Changing your heart in this case, meaning I'm going to help other sentient beings, everyone else around me, especially those people that I have the strongest karmic connection with. And as we will see as we go along, as I mentioned, for those of you that might have heard me talk at the Bankstown campus, the strongest karmic connection we have with people is not the people that we love or that we are, affiliated with via family or anything like that. But the strongest karmic connection we have with anyone are those people that have hurt us in some way, and those people that we ourselves have hurt. And you could hurt people not necessarily by you physically hurting someone, but you can actually be happy that someone that you don't like has suffered in some way. That's still participating in the karmic connection with that person. And because of that, definitely that kind of negative karma will ripen very, very quickly, much more so than the karma of in a loving relationship. So that's what we're here to really talk about. Well, actually, I'm here to talk about it. You're here to think about it. And hopefully you will leave this room. And for those of you who are in the studio audience, when you switch off your computer, something will continue to resonate with you if you have listened properly. So this is just an introductory thing. The concept of karma is way, way more profound than understanding emptiness, the true nature of reality. That is very easy in order to intellectually understand and kind of get your head around the philosophical concept of emptiness, dependent origination, dependent arising. When it comes to karma, this touches on a very, very deep psychological aspect to us. And that's where a lot of people back off, because nobody voluntarily goes to someone in order for that person to point out to them, well, you did that, you did this, you did that. Whoa, 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 whoa. I just want mantras, incense, and light, and I just want to chill out and forget about these things. Why are you reminding me of these things? If I wanted you to remind me of these things, I'd go and see a psychoanalyst. Well, surprise, surprise, that the fundamental aspect of Buddhism is a psychological one. So there are three aspects to. Excuse me, I'm just going to skip. There are three aspects, fundamental aspects to Buddhism. The first one, and all of these interrelate, and they are hierarchical from lowest to highest. So the lowest is the psychological aspect to Buddhism, or as His Holiness the Dalai Lama would say, the scientific aspect. But I personally, with all respect to His Holiness, would like to use the word psychological aspect. So that's why you will hear sometimes people say, no, look, Buddhism, it's not a religion, it's a psychology. Well, they're right. In that aspect, they're right. But that's only 1/3 of the whole thing. The next one up is the philosophical aspect to Buddhism. So some people say, well, Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy. Well, in that aspect, they're right too. It is a philosophy, right? But that's only 2/3 of the picture. The final aspect, the third and final aspect, is Buddhism as a religion. So what do you do in the religious aspect? Well, the religious aspect is the most important one, because religion, the purpose of religion, in fact, all religion, Hinduism, Judaism, whatever, The purpose of religion is a preparation for death. That's it. It's not, you owe me $50, we need to build a gold temple somewhere, and we're all going to be happy together, living in a commune, being in a cult, or anything like that. No, no, no. It's receiving the teachings in order to prepare yourself for death. Now, that in itself is a huge, huge psychological challenge, because most people don't want to talk about that, especially in the Western culture. But in fact, that is its only purpose. Think about it. Buddha, Christ, all the prophets of Judah, all the deities of Hinduism, the Sufi prophets and saints, they're always telling you the same thing. Behave yourself, act properly, think properly, do this properly, eat properly, do this, etc., etc. Be a good boy, be a good girl. And all that is teaching you the ethical aspect of their particular religion. Because from an ethical aspect, from a moral, ethics, morality, from that you develop concentration. From concentration, you develop wisdom. That's universal across the board. Buddhism, whatever, it's the same. Why is it the same? Why is it the same? It's the same because the consciousness, the mind, or the soul, if you like, the Atman, if you like, you can call it that. Although technically it's not true, but we can call it that. All these things are universal. Because if they weren't universal, then it would be impossible for me to describe something to you and you say, yeah, I know. When you say jealous, I know exactly what you talk about. Well, how do you know that? You were born 40,000 miles away in a different culture and speak another language. How do you know what I'm talking about? And this is very interesting because for those of you who maybe have read it or have heard about it, in the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, when the Buddha achieved enlightenment and he sat under the Bodhi tree for 49 days, and he sat there and he realized that this is way, way too profound. You know, the whole concept of emptiness, dependent arising. Nobody's going to understand what's going on. I'm just going to sit here and just chill out, you know. And it wasn't, you know, until a little while later that Brahma came and requested the Buddha to turn the Dhamma chakra, to turn the wheel of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And he had to remind the Buddha the promises that the Buddha had made as a bodhisattva in previous lifetimes, that when this time had arrived, full enlightenment, that you would teach this to everybody. He had to remind him. And the Buddha said, okay, I'll think about it. And it's interesting that the first person that the Buddha decided to give the teachings to was actually already dead. So I always thought that was quite interesting. And then afterwards, after those 49 days, the Buddha arose and went to Sanath to turn the first wheel of the Dharma, as we know. But the point here is that it would be impossible for the Buddha to teach the Dharma unless everyone will be able to comprehend what he's saying. So that means that we all possess the same consciousness, the same mind, the workings of it. But we have different physical forms, different genders, different cultures, different languages. That is because of our karma, of actions we have performed in previous lifetimes, have determined what our physical form is and everything else about us. Why we like chocolate ice cream and not strawberry ice cream, for example. Well, that's a big question. I don't even know if the Buddha can answer that one, you know. So all of that is karmic. It's all karmic. But the mechanism behind all that, the real, right, the very subtle consciousness, that is the Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha nature. That is universal. That is whether you're on this planet or a planet on the other side of the Milky Way, or if you're in the Andromeda galaxy, that is wherever sentient beings are, that is universal. And the Buddha himself says in the Perfection of Wisdom, in the 8,000 shlokas, he talks about how at this time, meaning when he taught the perfection of wisdom, the second turning of the Buddha, of the wheel, of the Buddha Dharma, when he was teaching it, he said that this time, this very moment, other Buddhas are teaching this very sutra in other worlds to numberless sentient beings. So in other words, life is pervasive throughout this universe and all the universe. You know. So in other words, if they are teaching that, if the Buddhas are teaching that in other worlds to other sentient beings, non-human entities, they too must possess the same sentient consciousness that we possess, the same attributes. They may have an IQ of 2000, but nevertheless, they are still subject to the law of cause and effect. They're still in samsara. And that what is being taught to them by another Buddha in another world, in another universe, or another galaxy rather, is identical to what Shakyamuni Buddha taught in our world system. So that's why it's possible for me, little old me, to actually explain things to everyone here, because when I say something from my own experience, it will resonate with you, because our minds are identical. The nature of our mind is identical. So the way I like to equate that is, you know, the internal combustion engine. Filthy thing, but that's what we have at the moment, unfortunately. But there are many forms of the internal combustion engine. It's a motorbike, car, you know, a bus, truck, whatever it is. So all those different vehicles run on the same physics. So it's the same thing with us. There are many types of people, they look differently, etc. But the internal engine is identical. It's identical. So that's why when we talk about bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment, the Arya bodhisattvas, when they look at everyone, there is no difference between everyone. Maybe there's a snake over there. There's no difference between a snake and all of us. So they will have equal compassion to everyone, whether they're kind to them or whether they hate them or everything in between. It's the same, because to an Arya bodhisattva, a bodhisattva who has direct perception of emptiness, you're all the same, because you're all in the same boat. Everyone is suffering. Everyone has the same problem. So what is that universal problem that we have? I'm just going to pause for a drink here whilst you think about that. So the most important thing that we have is this precious human rebirth. Precious in the sense that we have a connection with the Buddha Dhamma. So if you're Jewish, you have a precious human rebirth because you're Jewish. You have a connection with the Jewish heritage. Likewise with every other religion as well. But in Buddhism, we call it a precious human rebirth because this is our opportunity now to come in contact with the Buddha's teachings. We live in a country where the Buddha's teachings are accessible. You're not persecuted for being a Buddhist or really anything else. More or less. I mean, ideally, that would be perfect. But due to politics, things happen, yes. You have access to the Buddha's teachings. You have people that can teach you the Buddha's teachings, ordained or lay. Yeah, you have friends. You can share. You can talk to people about it. You can buy books. You can save money and go on pilgrimages, go on retreats, if you like. And all this is because you live where you live. You're not in a war zone, right? So when you look at all the things that are happening now on the news, right? The first thing you should think about, wow, I'm glad it's not me. Right? Even if you have relatives there, the first thing you should say, wow, it's not me. Second thought, what can I do? Right? What can I do? What can I do to help both sides, everyone? Because both sides are deluded. Why are they deluded? Because conflict only breeds conflict. There is no resolution here. So you have to look at perpetrator, whoever you think the perpetrator is, and you have to look at the victim. Gee, I really wish the perpetrator didn't think that way. And I really wish the victim didn't have to experience this. Okay? So we're thinking, just like the Arya Bodhisattvas, we're seeing everybody as equal. But because of our delusion, our ignorance, there's always going to be a problem. There's always going to be a perpetrator. There's always going to be a victim. So the solution is you feel sorry for all concerned, and above all, not to be part of it. So if somebody wants your help, you have to think very, very carefully about, oh, if I'm going to be contributing, how's that going to be interpreted? Is that going to help someone, or is that going to not help someone? Very, very complicated. Very, very, very complicated. So karma. Karma. The process of action. Karma is action. Action in body, speech, and mind. So it's not just physical action. It's mental action. Mental being the primary mover. It determines what happens to us. So in this aspect of, or in this part of karma, prior subject to karma is taking refuge. So we know that we have a precious human rebirth. We know we can lose this life very, very quickly because there are more causes for death than there are for life. I mean, what do we have in order to perpetuate our life? Live healthy, eat healthy, push-ups, glass of milk before bed. How many ways can you die? Car accidents, heart attacks, falling downstairs, die laughing, die in your sleep. On and on and on and on. Your dog who loves you bites you. The wound gets infected, blood poison, you die, boom. Heart attack because of shock, etc., etc., etc. So we can lose this life at any moment. We don't know what our life expectancy is. Young people die, old people, die, and everybody in between. People die in all sorts of circumstances. Rich people, high people, royalty, famous people, you name it, everyone. All the Buddha himself physically passed away, and the Buddhas before him had passed away. All the enlightened beings after the Buddha's life passed away as well. So all of this is an indication that if you take a physical form, you will have to lose that physical form. Through this process, we begin to look for a way to get out of this. Is there a way out of this cycle? And that's when we begin to take refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Right? And it's after that subject of refuge that now we talk about karma. Because you may take refuge in the Buddha, you may do all the fancy offerings, but unless you have a moral, ethical background or understanding, it's very, very easy for us to, to use up whatever karmic merit that we have. Meaning that the karma that has brought us here, as soon as now we are experiencing this, we've come here now, all those causes and effects that have brought us here, the moment we actually meet in order to do what we wish to have happened, which is to listen to the Dharma, at the moment we meet here, that karma is finished. We won't meet again unless you create the cause to meet again. That's why I said right at the beginning, motivation is very, very important. So if you just come here and you say, okay, that's kind of interesting. Okay, thanks, bye. End of story. We're not going to meet again. Very, very difficult to meet again. All right. Why? First of all, the Buddhist teaching is very precious. Secondly, having the motivation to meet the Buddhist teaching actually creates the cause to meet it. Because if we meet it somewhere in another time, we may coincidentally meet, but because you're pressed for time, I've got to go home, I've got to feed the cat or whatever it is, there's going to be some karmic obscuration that's going to prevent you from coming to a second Dharma teaching unless you create the cause for it, due to how precious the teachings are. Because we're not here just to talk about, oh, what did you do on the weekend? It's just a social chat or anything like that. There's a reason, there's a purpose for this. Okay, so if you want to create the cause for that, then you have to change your motivation for it. That's the secret to that. So for those of you who are going on pilgrimage to Sri Lanka, who are fortunate enough to do that, I highly, highly, highly recommend that when you go there, that you make prayers and dedications that you come back to Sri Lanka on pilgrimage. Don't just go there and say, this is fantastic, here are the photos, let's look at it. It's not a holiday. You go as a pilgrim. If you don't go as a pilgrim, then you're not going to see things as a pilgrim over there. You're only just going to see McDonald's restaurants. You're not going to see the stupas, the Chechen, and the monasteries, et cetera, et cetera. You won't receive the benefits. If you go as a tourist, you receive the benefit as a tourist. If you go as a pilgrim, you receive the benefits of a pilgrim. Motivation, perception, changing your perception allows you to see things the way you wish to see it. Okay, I'll give you an example of that. When I was in Nepal many years ago, we went to, a person asked me to take them to a very special temple, very small, maybe about the length of this room. And I said, just go down there and just the last door on your right, just go over there. And this person went around in circles for 2 or 3 times. And then they said, Robert, where is this place? And I said, look, it's just 30 feet away, just down there on the right. They didn't have the karma to see this because they were there they were just gonna make merit. Meaning I'm just here, like, I just want your blessings and I'm not really going to be doing anything about this. In other words, it was just me, me, me. It wasn't like I'm here to really to accumulate some kind of merit, to purify some kind of negative karma, and so I can actually share this with others. There was no Mahayana motivation whatsoever. And because of that, this person had very, very strong karmic obscurations. So I actually had to kind of physically show them it right over there. Oh, okay. So in other words, the Buddha himself could walk right past you and you wouldn't notice, right? I've seen photographs of nuns walking or just mingling in the foreground, and behind them was an image of a girl. And I was told that that girl was actually Arya Tara in the background. And the people in the foreground were totally clueless as to who this little girl was behind them. You know, Arya Tara is actually a Buddha, an emanation of Buddha. So, you know, even people in rooms, if you don't have the proper karma, it just won't happen. Look at Devadatta, you know, so close to the Buddha, like right there, related to the Buddha, and he's still got it wrong, right? So this is how complicated it is. So every time you go to a teaching, everything that you learn from here, you transpose that to whoever's giving the teachings. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, wherever you go, you change your motivation immediately. And because of that motivation, you're going to receive the benefits of that. That's very, very important. So by understanding that we have this precious human rebirth, by understanding that death can happen anytime, we don't know what our karmic duration is. We don't know how many people we have hurt in previous lifetimes, right? So karma is certain, and I'll be looking here at my notes. So there are the main four principles of karma I will be discussing, because the whole subject is just not doable in 90 minutes. It's not possible. Not even probably even 90 days we'll be able to cover to the extent of the subject of karma in any meaningful way. So there are four principles of karma, and the first principle is that karma is certain, right? It is certain that whatever we have created, the cause that we have created, it will bear a result. There will be a result of that. Now, a lot of people nod their heads and say, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? But remember what I said before about psychological aspect of the Dharma, right? If somebody says, I saw you take something the other day. Oh, no, wasn't me. Right? That's a natural psychological defense mechanism, like, because we're protecting ourselves, you know? And so this is the thing that gets a lot of people, that automatically our psychology gets in the way of the actual reality. I know one of my teachers, when people would come to for interviews, and he would have parents that would come in and say, you know, oh, the police came to take away my son, and please, could you intercede? He's such a good boy. He's so wonderful, etc., etc. And Rinpoche would say, well, you know, if he's so good, why did the police take him away? Why? It's illogical. It doesn't make sense. And that's not understanding the psychology. So that boy is good to his parents. Yeah, fine. But what he does after hours or whatever, that's a different story. So you experience the karma, the negative karma you have created, and at the same time, you experience the positive karma you have created. So at home, it's wonderful. You're a beautiful kid. Parents celebrate your birthday, whatever. They have no idea what you're doing behind their back. And yet, you're still going to experience that negative karma. As I said before, the heaviest karma that you perform is the first karmic action that you will experience. So for those of you who've been contemplating about death, which is nobody in this room and nobody online either, to the extent that it changes your life, what I mean by contemplation. If you've been contemplating about death properly, this should be a huge shock for you when I say that the first negative act, the heaviest, the most negative karma that you have performed is the first action that you will experience. So if you're contemplating on death, that should be a huge wake-up call for you, because when you take rebirth after this life, because the human consciousness, the soul, if you like, the mind, it's a continuum. You can't just say, snuff it out and say, that's it, finished. No. And there's no corner that you can sit in and say, oh, well, you know, I want to sit this out. I don't want to be reborn again. It's not like that at all. Your perpetuating karma will propel you to take rebirth because of your ignorance. The only way to stop this cycle of rebirth is to actually realize the true nature of your mind, and then through your own volition to actually determine where you will take rebirth. There's no such thing as, I'm just going to sit this out. You're just going to keep going and going and going. It's a party that never ends. And you know how it's going to turn out every time. And you see the same people at the party, they're playing the same music, it's the same food, and it just goes on and on and on and on. You go, dude, isn't there another party somewhere? Well, no, you got the karma to be in this party. You can't go to another party. It just goes on and on and on. And how does that party change? Well, it changes when you say, that's it, that's enough. But again, the psychological aspect is, we want to be part of a group. We want to be loved. We want to be liked. As long as we're in a group, it's okay. For example, during the Second World War, when tens of millions of people perished, and lots of people knew that they were going to die. But as long as they were together as a family, they were okay. They were okay. That was okay. That was comforting for them, that they would all die together. That's how strong our connection is, right? We need to, even at the time of death, to be together, making sure there's somebody. That's why when you hear somebody who dies in your street, and the first thing they say, oh my goodness, he died alone. If I only knew he was there, I could be there with him. That's how powerful it is. We need those people, this connection, right? But in the Buddha Dharma, it's the opposite to that. For those who are sincere meditators, very serious meditators, very rare, they want to be alone. They want to be in a cave somewhere. They want to be forgotten, right? Because they have control over their mind. They have control over their life force, etc., etc. So it's the opposite to us, right? So our worldly attitudes and the Buddha Dharma are oil and water. They will never, ever mix. That's why you can't bring worldly concerns to a Dharma teaching or a Dharma center, because if you do, you're only going to get worldly problems in a Dharma center and in a Dharma teaching. Again, checking your motivation. So karma is certain. That's the first principle. Karma is certain. It's guaranteed. How do we know that? First of all, the Buddha says so, right? Well, okay, excuse me, no disrespect, but so, right? You know what I mean? That's the way we should be thinking, right? Because the Buddha himself said, don't accept what I say just because out of veneration for me. You have to test what I say, right? So if somebody gives you a gold coin, how do you know that's gold coin? Well, my uncle gave it me. Yeah, what does your uncle do? Well, he's a used car salesman. Check the coin. Check the coin. Is it lead or is it gold? You know? So you have to check the coin. So that's what the Buddha always said, right? So the Buddha is actually challenging us to test him, right? So what about the rest of us? So this is very good because when you come in contact with someone, either in robes or myself, who now, as an authority figure, now is demanding veneration from you, is demanding something from you, the first thing you should be saying is, whoa, 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 hang on a second. The Buddha himself is challenging us to challenge him. And you want veneration from me, right? Well, who are you? Are you above the Buddha then? So automatically, this is like creating a level field here. It's already, if you understand this, it's already saying, well, hang on a second, I have to use my mind now. Am I being intimidated to do something that I don't want to do? Am I being asked of something of myself that I really don't want to do? Because keeping in mind, the worst thing that can happen in a spiritual setting is for someone to pretend to be something that they are not. And the Buddha himself said that the quickest way for the Buddha Dharma to deteriorate in the world is by people who are charlatans, who are pretending to be teaching the Dharma when in fact they are doing something opposite to that. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm touching on all sorts of points here, and I'm doing my best to keep myself confined here. But there are so many ways that this one subject interacts with the rest of the Buddha Dharma, and all of that has practical applications. And the most important one at this point is for us not to be dissuaded through intimidation or through false belief into doing something that we don't want to do. So that's why it's important for us to understand our psychological state of mind to begin with. Do you like to get angry all the time? Do you have a desirous mind? Do you wish somebody to do things for you? You know, rather than you just want to be a follower. You don't want to actually use your mind. You want somebody else to use your mind, for example. What is your psychological profile? Only you should understand that. Because if you don't use your mind, someone, consciously or unconsciously, directly or indirectly, will use your mind for you. Right? And that's scary. That's very, very, very scary, right? Because then you're going to be a party. You're going to be sharing the karma to somebody else's actions. And if they get you to do something that is illegal or something non-virtuous, you have now accrued that negative karma. Right? So you have to be very, very careful when you're choosing a spiritual path, that what you're listening to and to whom you're listening to and what you wish to take on board is squeaky clean. Squeaky clean. And you only take it on board after thorough analysis over an extended period of time. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, you know, the qualifications for an appropriate Dharma teacher, you know, that they must be rich in scripture, and they must have the realizations that they are teaching, they must be practicing what they are teaching. And that they must have, the minimum requirement is that they must be, have this bodhicitta mind, the mind of enlightenment. So they may not be a great scholar, but they must have this mind that they, of enlightenment, of actually making the Dhamma accessible to others. And then Lama Tsongkhapa says, then when you meet someone like that, you observe them over an extended period of time, months, weeks, years, to observe them. Are they practicing the same thing? How are they under pressure? You know, how are they when they're relaxed, right? And that's the only way we can actually tell if someone is qualified or not. So karma is certain. What we do will bear results. So if we choose a spiritual path, we must be certain that this spiritual path best reflects my psychological state of mind. It makes sense. It feels right. Right? It's not just something I'm doing because I was born into a Buddhist family. No. What makes someone a Buddhist? Does anybody know? What makes someone a Buddhist? Anybody in the studio audience? No, that's okay.
Identification as a Buddhist?
No.
No.
No. No. See, so if we don't even understand that, what makes you think that you'll be able to understand profound subject of karma, renunciation, bodhicitta, correct view, etc., etc. So what makes someone Buddhist is they take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And that doesn't mean you take refuge with your hands, it means takes you refuge with your heart. So what does that mean? That means that you would have studied the qualities of a Buddha, you would have studied the qualities of the Dharma, you would have studied the qualities of the Sangha, you would have contemplated on those things, and then, and only then, you would change your mind accordingly. So it's not just blind faith and say, as the Buddha himself said, as I said, you know, just because you wear robes or just because you have a halo or golden skin does not actually, believe it or not, and it may sound a little bit sacrilegious, and of course I don't mean it in that way, but it means that faith in the Buddhist tradition is based on logic and reason. It's not blind faith, right? That's you're using your mind right to begin with. Again, if you don't use your mind, someone else will use your mind for you. So for example, you know, those people who didn't use their mind, they abandoned the Buddha and they followed Devadatta because Devadatta had his own followers and worshippers. And I'll give you an example of that. If you think that's, oh, well, that's a little bit kind of like a fairy tale there, as most people may believe it is, well, I'll give you a story that's more close to home. A couple of years ago, or some years ago now, a nun with a group of her students came to one of my teachers, a very high Lama in the Tibetan tradition, to receive a highest yoga tantric empowerment. And Rinpoche thought about it and he said to the nun, he said, if I give you this empowerment, you will be the captain or the leader of all this group of students you have in the hell realms. And they thought, whoa. Now, what he was saying there was that you had come with improper motivation. You would only come here to receive this empowerment so you would be able to lord it over these people. And you're only using your status, in this case as a nun, in order to make yourself out to be bigger than everyone else. Because of this improper motivation, and because you wanted to practice the tantric path, Tantra, as Sakya Pandita says, there's only up or down. It's like a hollow straw. You either go up or you go down. It's the quickest path to enlightenment, and it's the quickest path to hell. So with improper motivation, you're going down. So Rinpoche, because he had such high compassion, he said, I can't do this. This is no good. So there we go. For us, this is alarm bells because here we have someone in robes who has improper motivation, right? People are people, right? So now, for some people, depending on the tradition they come from, well, Robert, isn't that disrespectful of you? No, it's not. This is an example of where Robert is using his mind via the scriptures that I've read with Lama Tsongkhapa and seeing in real life, there's a living example here of someone actually doing the wrong thing. Now, how do we know we're not a student of someone like that? Again, if we have a strong karmic connection with someone like that, the seriousness of that is that that person will hurt us not only in this life, but many, 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 many lifetimes. It will be eons before we purify the negative karma. An eon, I forget how many zeros are in it, but basically an eon is the extent, the time it takes the universe to be formed from a big bang, for the universe to expand and then to contract. That is one small eon. One great eon is, I think, about 13 of these together. So the amount of time that we will spend in the lower states of existence will be equivalent like 2 or 3 great eons, which is the time that it took Shakyamuni Buddha to achieve enlightenment from a sutric path. Okay, so the good thing about this is that we have to understand this, right? And not to be pessimistic and say, well, gee, Robert, this is a bummer. You know, why are you bringing me down? I came to a Dharma class here. I want rainbows. I want angels. I want beautiful music. I just want to chill out. You're reminding me of bad things, man. What's going on? This is, well, okay, you can think like that, but then again, that's your psychological profile. You're being escapist. When there's a problem, I'm out of here. Right? When somebody's trying to say, hey, listen, hey, just sit down. Whoa, 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 sit down. Hey, come back. Oh, wait, where you going? I just wanted to tell you what's wrong with you. No. I got to go to the pub. I got to self-medicate. I got to watch video, play some games. I got to anesthetize myself to forget about things. And everything we do is really basically an anesthetic. I got to talk to my friend. 3 o'clock in the morning. I got to call my ex because I'm just feeling lonely. I gotta stop this, you know. So all this is happening because we don't understand our psychology. We haven't spent time with ourselves. I don't mean you have to be in a cave somewhere. I mean you haven't sat in a park or in your room at home and looked within yourself. That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to go anywhere special other than going inside and just say, and being honest. And remember that thing that I was saying, that survival mechanism? When we look at something wrong about ourselves, even when we think about, oh, that's so embarrassing, I don't want to think about that. That's a survival mechanism, right? Because we don't want to think badly about ourselves. But now we're being asked to, when we think badly about ourselves, to actually stay there, focus on that. Don't run away. Think about it. What is it that you did that was so embarrassing or was so wrong? Right? That takes a little bit of courage and lots of practice, because that's what's going to happen when, as Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, who in the hell realms created all the witches and the hot hells? We did. We did. Why? Because we didn't recognize all the things that we have done wrong. We run away from it. And this is where it starts. Oh, geez, that was so embarrassing. I want to forget about it. No. Confront it as much as you can. Look at it head on. See it, observe it for what it is. Where is it coming from? How does it affect you? And what are you going to do about it? Most importantly, I don't know what to do about it. You don't know what to do about it. What do you mean by you don't know what to do about it? You started it, right? You created it, right? So there must be a solution to it. In other words, it's a mental construct. Where does it exist? Is it in the room that you are? Is it in your arm? Where is this that you're looking for? It's a mental construct. So if it's a mental construct, I created it. I can now uncreate it as well. But the thing is, we can't do that because it happens due to habit. The fear, the anger, the passion, whatever it is, just comes up in a nanosecond. It's so quick and it feels alive. It feels like it's concrete. That's why karma is certain, because we are that anger now. We are that desire now. We are that uncertainty, anxiety. That is actually our identity, and that anxiety are now one and the same thing. You habituate yourself to that 30 or 40 times a day for your whole life, 20, 30, 40 years, it solidifies. You can't separate the two. You can't separate the two. And of course, at the time of death, you will only go where your karma will take it. Like the scriptures say, like a dry autumn leaf on the wind. We have absolutely no control of where we will go. But here, I'm trying to explain, we do have control. We have always had control. It's just that we think there's a separation between us and those thoughts. I only want good thoughts, not bad thoughts. Well, wait a minute. Where do the bad thoughts exist? Well, they're over there. I don't want anything. No, they're still part of you. Where are you going? So this is the problem. So karma becomes, second principle, karma becomes magnified. So it's just like for those of you who have shares and are checking on a daily basis, market's going up, market's going down, beautiful, love it, keep going, profit, baby. It's the same thing here with karma. If we had the same, sometimes I wish we did have like a karma stock exchange where you check your karmic stock and say, whoa, I did 10 bad things today. Oh, that's really bad. That's really bad. That's how many good things? Half. Sell when you get, so you got more bad karma than you got good karma, and you can't sell it. It stays with you. It stays with you. And so I gave the example last time when I was in Bankstown of the scriptures say that that if you have a vendetta against someone and you hate that person, you want that person dead. I mean, you want that person tortured. You want the worst imaginable thing out of a Quentin Tarantino film done to that person. That's how much you hate that person, even though you never want to do it yourself or anything like that, but you think badly about that person for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Now, according to this second principle, karma becomes greatly amplified. It accumulates. Now, if you've done that on a daily basis for 20 or 30 years, you actually have accumulated the karma of actually torturing and murdering a person. It's the same. Why? Because mentally, the mind, the primary mover, is transfixed onto the suffering and creating suffering for somebody else. If you are constantly within that context and projecting that suffering, then that is what you have accumulated the karma of. The opposite is true. If somebody has hurt you and you're thinking, okay, I'm making prayers and dedications for that person's long life, may their negative karma ripen and may they be free from suffering as quickly as possible. And you think that way on your daily practice, then that becomes true now. You've now created positive action in a negative situation. But first of all, you need to understand your own suffering in order to do that. Again, going back to understanding your own psychology, not running away from it, understanding what triggers you, what doesn't trigger you. All right? So if you step on a cockroach out of anger, and you first of all, you see the cockroach, you don't like the cockroach, you recognize it as the cockroach, and then you go there and you kill it. And then you have no remorse. You say, yes, if I see another cockroach, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Then for sure, that karmic action will happen again. That is totally different compared to someone who, oh, accidentally stepped on a cockroach. Did you mean to do it? No, I didn't even know he was there. You still accumulate some karma, but not as badly as intentionally and volitionally doing something. So if I throw something at someone and I'm saying, I'm going to aim it for you, right? But you walk in the way and I accidentally hit you. Now, did I create the karma of hurting you? No. It was an accident that I hit you, but I was aiming for someone else that I wanted to get. Again, intention, volition. And also, do you have any regret in doing it? Oh, I'm going to do it again. What's the problem? If you hurt me, I'm going to do it, you know. Cockroach scares me. I'm going to kill it. You know? So doing that and then killing one cockroach, two cockroaches, slowly, slowly, slowly. And we know those people who may be studying psychology, we know from profiles of serial killers, we can see when they were young, little children, they were killing things all the time. Insects, you know, torturing dogs and animals, birds, etc., and working their way up to, like Ivan Milat, to killing people. We can see that through people's behavior, that karma gets more and more accumulative. It accumulates and it stays within the consciousness until it ripens. So we shouldn't be afraid of understanding this. We shouldn't be afraid of what other people think of us. You can say whatever you want about me. You know, it's your karma, right? What I'm afraid of is my karma. I'm afraid of what I think of you. That's a huge psychological challenge. No one thinks like that.
It's just what I've had. Yeah.
The reason why no one thinks like that is because we're only thinking about our own, again, survival technique, our survival mechanism. Okay? So the third principle is that we cannot meet with a karma that we have not performed. In other words, we can't experience an action we haven't performed. So we can see other people become rich and famous. And we can say, why them? Why not me? Well, dude, did you ever go out and do what they did or half of what they did? No. But you want to be famous and rich like that? Yeah, why not? And what do? Well, stay home, watch TV, eat pizza. Right, okay. So no action, karma, no action, but yet you want all the rewards. You want all that, but you don't want to do all the work. So we can see that, for example, from a socio-political point of view, this whole thing about the Ausländer, as the Germans would say, the outsider, and how people have this warped perception about people from other countries who come over to their country, inverted commas, their country. They come in, and in a matter of short period of time, they already have a business and lots of money, etc., etc. And then they get offended. Well, look, I've been living here for 40 years, all my whole life, and I don't even have half of what these people have. Well, dude, what do? Well, I drink beer, stay home, watch TV. But these people are working night and day, creating a business, making sure their kids go to university, night and day. And they think that, oh, all of a sudden, these people now are rich and famous in my, inverted commas, country. Very, very distorted way of thinking. And of course, racism comes out of all that, you know, and all sorts of political mumbo jumbo that come out of it. And that's simply because they didn't want to learn from these other people, right? And more importantly, they didn't understand their own karma. Nothing happens unless you create the cause for it. And in that scenario, the only thing you're creating a cause for now is conflict, misunderstanding, and a lot of trouble for yourself and for everyone else. For yourself in this life and definitely in a future lifetime. Because if you hurt someone, they're going to hurt you. That's why you have to be careful about what you say, think, and do. So don't be afraid of what others say about you. Be afraid of what you say about them. Because they will experience their karma and you will experience your karma, right? So you can't experience a karmic action you haven't performed. No one can touch you. You can't experience it. So if someone dies at a young age, for example, well, what's the karma for that? People always like to say, why do good people die young? Well, from a karmic point of view, what makes you think that that person's good? Well, they didn't do anything. You know, they were just 12 years old or something. Okay, all right, fine. But you don't know what they were in the previous lifetime. That guy could have been a Nazi officer during World War II. You don't know, right? And the fact that he's blonde in this lifetime, well, maybe. You know, you don't know. So yes, it's sad that people have to die. There's no doubt about that. But you have to look at the big picture from the Buddhist teachings, because we don't have the omniscient mind to really say why that person died at the age of 12, right? So we have to say, okay, all right, the Buddha says, well, it's a karmic thing. So if somebody dies young, there's a good bet that this person was responsible for someone else's death. So killing someone or a sentient being is a direct cause for having a short lifespan. You kill someone, your lifespan shortens, definitely. If not in this life, definitely in a future lifetime. It's guaranteed. So again, be afraid of your actions, not someone else's actions. So when you see all this conflict that's going on, and even with a little bit now, what you know, you have to sit back and you say, wow, the chaos and misery that's now being created, the karmic consequences that are now happening, that will project into the future. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Again, you have to say, wow, I'm glad I'm not party to that. And then you make offerings and prayers and dedications for everyone else who has died, those who will die, and those who will perpetuate that suffering. That's how you think about these things. And that's how the world begins to make sense. Because it's very easy to say, this is too confounding, it's too complicated for me, I just want to get out of here, and you just make things more and more miserable for yourself. No. Okay, well, that's one way. But the proper way to do it, the most constructive way to do it, is to realize it, rationalize it from a Buddhist point of view and say, well, I don't want to be part of that. And for those who are part of that, well, I dedicate my merit to world peace, and I will try to play my part in bringing world peace. And that's it. At this point in time, that's as good as it gets. And that should give you solace. That should give you courage. That should give you optimism. That should actually give you inspiration. And that should actually validate the Buddhist teachings, because you're putting them into practice. So by validating them, it allows you to progress more and more and more. Because if the Buddha's right about this, then I can infer the Buddha's right about that. So when I get to this stage, oh, he must be right about this. And it goes round and round and round and round. That's how that works. So the final point is that a karma that we did perform does not lose its power to bear fruit. Point 4. So what we do stays with us until it ripens, meaning if you've done something, good or bad, so if I've given some money to someone at their time of need, now I've created a cause that in future, in this life, definitely in the next lifetime, sometime, somebody will give me money when I'm in need. Either identical amount or very close to the amount that I have given, right? So that's why it's possible in this life for people a lot of people I know say, well, look, I'm not doing anything, and people are just giving me things out of nowhere. It's fantastic. It's great, you come to Australia and it's just giving. Well, I have to remind people saying, well, yeah, no, that's right. It's wonderful that you have that kind of, that you have this precious human rebirth, but you don't understand that this isn't going to last. It's not going to last because your karma is going to run out, right? And then the opposite's going to happen. You're going to be losing. You won't be able to find anything. Right? So we experience the generosity because we have given generously, right? So the same is true from a negative point of view as well. You hurt someone will hurt you in exactly the same way or very similar way that you have hurt them in terms of insulting someone. Right? Now that will stay with us until that karma ripens, which means ripening, I mean someone else now insults you. As soon as they insult you the way you've insulted someone else, that karma's done. Right? But what we spoke about previously, that karma that we have accumulates on a daily basis. It gets heavier and heavier and heavier. Right? Excuse me. And by that, by the end of one lifetime, we've accumulated a vast amount of karma. That's why the Buddha said that the majority of us will be taking rebirth in a lower state of existence, not in a higher state of existence, simply because we don't believe in the law of cause and effect. Not intellectually, but experientially from our heart. We don't believe in this, right? So that's why this understanding karma is actually the gateway to happiness. Because you could be cleaning toilets for a living and you could still be the happiest person in the world, because all you have to do is say, how wonderful that the Dalai Lama is teaching somewhere in India today. And you actually, through the law of cause and effect, you actually accumulate a part of that virtue of his holiness. So for example, in the story of the Buddha was invited to give teaching at a rich benefactor's place. And the Buddha came and there was a huge banquet, etc., etc. And then after the banquet and the teaching, after 2 or 3 days of being there, the benefactor, with a sense of pride and with a sense of, I know what the Buddha's going to say, said to the Buddha, well, who has accumulated the most merit now out of all this? And the Buddha thought, and he said, the person that has accumulated the most merit from the Buddha coming here to give teachings with the Sangha and for a couple of days and feeding us and giving us shelter, that person is the beggar on the gate to the city. And the benefactor thought, what? What about me? You know, I'm the guy sponsoring all this. And the Buddha said, no. That beggar in the city, that beggar at the city gate, he rejoiced and felt happy for you that you could actually afford to sponsor the Buddha and the Sangha to do this. And he meant it sincerely from the bottom of his heart. Therefore, all the merit of this occasion goes to that man. So it's in a similar way. If you could be staying home and you could just feel happy for everybody around the world who's doing something. All the people who are helping people in the Amazon, to protect the Amazon, in Africa, the famine relief and all that. You say, wow. You may not have the ability to do that, but you go, wow, how fantastic that these people actually do that. You know, wonderful. And you mean that sincerely. And because of that, you accumulate the virtue, part of that virtue. That's how powerful our mind is. The opposite of that, if you want to harm someone, you can easily do that as well. But we know what the consequences of that are. So by understanding that karma accumulates, by understanding that karma sits with us, and by understanding that we create more negative karma than we do positive karma, that should create a certain amount of anxiety. And not running away, as I said before, from our psychological profile. Well, no, dude, no, don't. I've been swearing all day today. Don't tell me something's going to happen to me. Well, yeah, I don't want to hear that. You know, well, yeah. So you're running away from yourself. You're running away from your own karmic responsibility. C'est pas possible. That's not possible. How are you going to run away from yourself? But this is how deluded we are psychologically. No, I'm not going to take responsibility. I'm going to lie. I'm going to pin it on someone else. Someone else is going to take the blame. And really, our world is so screwed up that we're willing to kill other people to keep quiet about our own failings. Our own failings. We're willing to kill people because he knows too much. He's got to go. You know, he knows where all the bodies are held. He knows where the money is. He knows we've been dealing with drugs over the last 15 years, whatever, blah, blah. He knows the names. He's got to go. So they're trying to get away from their own karmic responsibility. It's not going to happen. And of course, we do that ourselves. You don't have to be some mafia boss or something like that. But we say that, no, I didn't take the last piece of cheesecake from the fridge last night. It wasn't, I didn't even know that was there. Well, you know, what are you saying? It wasn't me. It's all those little things add up to something big. That's why, lying is it's a big problem. Because if it accumulates, if you become a pathological liar, lying about everything and anything, then that becomes a huge problem for you because you're accumulating vast amount of negative karma. If you have to lie to protect someone's life or your life, it's no problem. You have to do that, right? But here we're talking about consistent lying, and it's ingrained. That's the problem. Okay. All right, so we've got a little bit of time left. So to consolidate this practice, as per usual, I like to do the Chenrezig purification practice. So here I've got, for those people who want, I've got some images of Buddha Chenrezig, which we will be doing the visualization. So if you want a card for visualizing this for you to keep, so if you want one, anybody would like one, please take one. Sure, it's yours.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Anybody else? Yep. Okay. Two. Yeah, first, yeah. Check. Okay. So for those people, for those people at home, if you want to project that. So that's the image, that's Buddha Chenrezig, the forearm version. On the back of that card is the 8 auspicious symbols for you who are wondering what they are. Just take my word for it. That's another 4 or 5 days of talking what they are, what they represent. We don't have that time. Google it. So we will be visualizing Buddha Chenrezig in front of us. And we will be requesting Buddha Chenrezig to help us to purify our negative karma from what we have learned.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Share screen. Yeah, I have to actually.
Does anybody have any questions whilst we're waiting for Does anybody have a question?
Yes, so.
Sorry, what's your name?
My name's Simran.
Hey, Simran, how you doing?
Thank you. Again, I enjoyed the first Monday.
Thank you very much. I remember you, yeah.
So on the topic of karma, especially from past lives. So at the moment, like the reason why I'm just where I am is because I'm going through a lot of like a very bad skin conditions, and like for example, the past few days I've been like in the emergency hospital and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's really bad, and but I'm fortunate that I had the karmic forces to bring me here today. I've been speaking to some other people as well, also with Buddhist background, and one lady was saying that, she knew someone similar, and their master advised that person that it could be that because he could see that from their past life they were a mole, and they were always underground, and so that's why in this life they're very sensitive to the sun and having all these sort of problems, and that you could see and discover these things. Now, how could someone like myself sort of find the insight as to perhaps what could be the causes as to this, and if it is from sort of past life?
Yeah, definitely it's from past life. Definitely from past. The only way we can do that is through inference. And so the only way we can, how do we know valid cognition? Valid cognition. How do we know something is valid? Cognitionally, meaning through our minds. Well, we can either see, feel something, okay, that looks solid, or we can infer something, where we see smoke, we say, oh, we can infer there's probably a fire over there, right? The third way, from the Buddhist point of view, is through scriptural citation. So we take the Buddha's teachings, because he was the explorer who went out, so to speak, and discovered things and came back and told us about these things, how they are, right? So from that, in fact, that's how all religions work, Christ, etc., all the prophets. They see things and they come back and they tell us about all these things that we cannot experience. So those are the three things, you know. So we can infer from here through scriptural citation that these kind of problems definitely happened from a previous lifetime. What they were exactly, yeah, you're going to need somebody with an omniscient mind to tell you exactly what they are. Now, that could be in the Tibetan tradition, it could be something like you could have been living in a certain area, maybe in this life. I know of people who have had skin problems and all sorts of lumps and things in their skin from area bushland that was cleared around their property. And in Tibetan Buddhism, we call that nagas, who live in those environments. They were disrupted and they came into that person's body, you know. So nagas are basically responsible for any forms of skin condition, right? So either in this lifetime or previous lifetimes, you potentially, I mean, and of course, this is just inference. I'm not saying this is what it is. We can infer that this is something kind of like payback for what we have done. And I know some people in this life, or quite a few people in this life with skin problems due to naga scenarios. So what I would recommend, you know, by all means, seek medication, you know, do the medical stuff, but that's the body, right? But then from the spiritual side, you know, to do the purification practice, which we will, okay, we're good to go, this is one option of it. So this is going to require a little bit of visualization, and I will give the detailed version, then I will give the simplistic version, because I don't expect anyone to get it first time around, especially if you're hearing it for the first time. So those of you who have the image, the Buddha Chenrezig, this is the form that we will visualize above your head level, just above, in front of you, just slightly above. Visualize the image, not too big, not too small. But because we're talking about karma in this situation, in this version of Chenrezig purification, I would like to introduce something new in a public setting. And that is, by what little bit we understand now, I will ask people, as long as it's comfortable with you and it doesn't trigger you in any way whatsoever, I will ask you now to visualize Buddha Chenrezig sitting in front of you, all right? And also in front of you and facing you is someone that you, or someone that has hurt you in some way, or you have hurt in some way, shape, or form. Either at school, currently, maybe it's a next door neighbor that you have a problem, right? It doesn't have to be anything really, really traumatic. If it is, stop it immediately. Do not trigger yourself, right? Think of a politician if you have a problem. Or don't think of anyone at all. If you don't feel comfortable visualizing someone else in front of you, don't think of that. Just think of Buddha Chenrezig in front of you, okay? It's your decision. But those of you who are willing to try it, please do, all right? So visualize the person in front of you. They also have Buddha Chenrezig in front of you. This person cannot hurt you. There is nothing bad about this person that you are visualizing. Buddha Chenrezig is above their head, right? Buddha Chenrezig is smiling at you and at this person, right? Both you and this other person are being accepted for who you are. You're not being judged by Buddha Chenrezig. Again, this person, there is no anger or animosity towards this person. What you understand from the law of karma, now is your chance to help this person. You're taking the Mahayana initiative. You're visualizing this other person. And you have chosen to help them via the karmic connection that you have with Buddha Chenrezig. Feel that this other person that you're visualizing needs your help. You're fortunate. You have the karmic connection with Buddha Chenrezig. This person is lost. Whether they're alive or dead, they are lost. They need you. Visualize that Buddha Chenrezig is glowing a whitish light with a very soft pink tinge. Very, very pleasant, very, very peaceful. That peace, harmony, compassion fills the whole room. Now, when we begin to recite the Chenrezig mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, we will recite it 21 times out loud together. Then after that, we'll do it silently for a short period of time. Just follow me, right? Now the visualization. Out of Buddha Chenrezig's heart comes white light with this nectar that strikes you on your crown and the person that you're visualizing. Like a strong waterfall, it goes from the top of your body, the crown of your head, straight down into your body and straight down to the bottom of your toes, like a very, very, very strong waterfall. And it flushes all the negativities that you have performed in body, speech, and mind. It flushes them from the bottom up, and it flushes it out of the top of your head, through your nose, through your eyes, through your ears, through the pores of your skin, through the lower parts of your body, like you have diarrhea and like you're incontinent. All of that, feel very, very, very strongly that all these negativities are coming out. And those negativities are oily black. It's like oil coming out of your body. Feel very, very, very strong that that is happening. Like it's physically, it's visual. It's just, you just want to throw up. You just feel like you just let it go. Just let it go. Nothing to be afraid of, because now is the time not to identify with our negative karma anymore. Let go of that. Just let it go. There's nothing here anymore. All right? Okay? At the same time, as we're doing that, all of this, feel very, very, very strong regret in what we have done in terms of hurting people, saying bad things, taking things, etc., etc. Right? Then feel very, very strong reliance upon Buddha Chenrezig. Buddha Chenrezig, you are the only one at this point that I have the strongest karmic connection with that can actually help me to purify my negative karma. Please, 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 please help me. Strong reliance. I strongly regret what I have done. Then promise not to do these actions again. To the best of my ability, I will not do these actions again. Okay? Then we do the antidote, which is we promise not to do these actions again. You don't do what you have done. And overall, any Dharma practice is an antidote to our negativities. Okay? So that's the elaborate version. The condensed version is visualize a very white light, like a soft snowball with a pinkish tinge, which has the nature of Buddha Chenrezig. From that white light, a nectar comes down to us and the person in front of us. And we again use the four opponent powers. We regret what we have done, strong reliance on Buddha Chenrezig, promise not to do those actions again, and we do the antidote afterwards, right? All of that is happening as you're visualizing. You try to the best of your ability to think of that. At best, just have strong, strong regret in what you have done and have strong faith in Buddha Chenrezig to help us, okay? Then we'll recite 21 times together out loud. Then we will do silently chanting. And then we will do 21 times out loud again. Just follow me. And then when at the end, when I say Om Mani Padme Hum, that last one, strongly visualize that the white light and nectar flushes every last thing out of your body, every last negativity out of your body. And you are now clean as a vase on the inside and the outside. And we meditate on that for a short period of time. Okay? Okay, so 21 times out loud. Just follow me. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 어머네 베베 어머네 어머네 베베 어머네 베베 홈 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 Yeah. Yeah. Feel very, very strongly that that negative karma has been purged, and that that from here on in, it's almost like having a shower. We promise not to put on our dirty clothes again, and promise to be more mindful. So in order to create the karmic connection here with Buddha Chenrezig, we dedicate what little merit we have created here for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, that may all mother sentient beings be free from suffering, and may quickly come in contact with the true Buddha Dharma and free themselves from all suffering. And may the causes of suffering always be extinguished, and that the causes for samsara themselves always come to an extinction. We also dedicate a little virtue of gathered here for the benefit of all the Dharma teachers in the 10 directions, those ordained, those lay practitioners who are turning the wheel of the Dharma. May they always remain with us to turn the wheel of the Dharma until samsara's end, and even beyond samsara's end. Sava Mangala. Thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Not too bad. 4 minutes over.
I actually felt like throwing.
That's good. That's good. If you actually feel tonight, if you have any dreams of blood or feces or anything like that, that's actually good. That's auspicious. That's not you've been cursed or anything like that. That is actually a sign that you have a karmic connection with Buddha Chenrezig. And that should speak for itself. I'm not here to wave the flag or to convert anyone. You see for yourself. So if you have any dreams today or tonight about blood or someone cutting you or defecating or anything like that, for example, someone who did prostrations. We have to do, in the Tibetan tradition, we have to do 100,000 prostrations as a way of accumulating merit. And one person reluctantly didn't want to do it because they think erroneously doing prostrations, I don't like exercise, I'm sweating, I'm this, whatever, which is all a sign of karmic obscuration, right? Because they don't understand the virtuous quality of this. So anyway, this person started doing prostration, and because we're not exactly Arnold Schwarzenegger, so you only do about 20, 25, and you get exhausted. Fair enough, right? However, because he did them correctly, that night he had a dream that he was walking in the street, and then all of a sudden there was a flood of blood that came up to his knees. The whole street was flooded in blood. Afterwards, he spoke to me. I said, look, that's actually very, very good. That's a very auspicious dream. That means you've just purified some very, very, very negative karma. Like potentially you've just lengthened your lifespan. That's what that means. Okay, so that's what we should be thinking about. Some of you may say, I don't believe it. Well, that's fine. That's up to you. But this is what the scriptures say, and this is what validates through my experience and the experience of other people. So if you have those kind of dreams, that's actually very good. Feel very happy for yourself and that you have a karmic connection with Buddha Chenrezig, and no one can take that experience from you. So if somebody says, well, you're just looking at a picture and just visualizing, you're basically hypnotizing yourself to do this. Your experience proves otherwise. Okay, so any questions?
Thank you, Robert. And noting we're at 8:36, so if anyone needs to leave, I think you're very welcome to, and in person as well, won't be offended. And we'll just do a bit of announcements before we get to the question and answer. All people are here. So as usual, we've got Monday meditations in Bangsar and online. That's 7 to 8:30. Yoga classes in person in Bangsar at 6:30 to 7:30, and then 7 to 8:30 every Wednesday here as well as online. And we have monthly workshops with Aya Karunika. We just had one last Sunday. I didn't get to go, but I think it's always a great time. Yeah, maybe you have to wait for next one. And then Ajahn Tulisro's senior teaching tour on the 22nd and 23rd of November. That's online in person as well. And just before everyone leaves as well, I'd like to just say big thanks to Robert. I know you're not leaving yet, but
yeah,
big thanks for you.
For the invitation.
Yeah, thank you for answering our invitation, giving this talk on karma. I think, as you said, it's not a topic that we like to our mind likes, but it's an important thing to know and to learn and to know what to do with it. So with knowledge comes power. I think that's also maybe a quote, but maybe not. But yeah, thank you for giving us the knowledge so that we can now practice when we go home and investigate. And so yeah, now we up to the question and answer time. We do have some people waiting online for some questions, so I might ask those and then we can get to any person.
Okay.
So Jenny, are you still there? I think
Yeah, she's still.
she is still there.
Yeah.
Okay. Jenny had a question. So she said, hi Robert, can you please share the sutta/sutra reference for the strongest karma will be the first action we experience at some point?
I'm talking from the Tibetan tradition, and from the Tibetan tradition, I'm following what is known in the specifically in the Gelugpa tradition. Oh, well, actually, in all the aspects of Tibetan tradition, but as I'm affiliated more with the Gelugpa tradition. In the Gelugpa tradition, you know, we call it, we have the Lamrim Chenmo by Lama Tsongkhapa, who's the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, and that is what I'm following. So that is basically all the Buddhist teachings condensed into one format, which is known as the Lamrim Chenmo, which is translated as the great stages on the path to enlightenment. So that's what I'm following. In what Pali canon this is from, sorry, I wouldn't have a clue. That's out of my tradition. So I can only say that this is from the Lamrim Chenmo, the great stages on the path to enlightenment, and it's on the chapter or the section on karma itself. Yeah.
Hope that helps, Jenny. Let us know if you have any follow-up questions. And then Cynthia asked, hello, Robert. Can you please share the point in detail about if we don't use our mind, someone will use it on behalf of us?
Yeah, well, this is what I was talking about in terms of psychology, you know, because we're all looking for, or we don't understand our own psychology. And if we have the psychological profile, if we are basically someone who it just likes to follow other people and okay, all right, what movie do you want to go see? Well, whatever you want, you know. What do you want to go and eat? Well, wherever you want to go, that's okay with me, you know. What kind of furniture do you want to buy for the new place? Well, whatever you want, that's okay. Well, in that situation, which is a common situation, I think, that person is allowing someone else to use their mind. Now, hopefully for that person, in that example, they're in a loving and caring relationship, and the person they're with will take them to a good restaurant, will buy the appropriate furniture, et cetera, et cetera. But that may not work at work. It may not work in like if you're in a strata or something like that. There's always these plays where little people are put in big positions, and boom, ego happens, you know. And so when ego happens, it's all about me. And if you're dealing with people, should you have the misfortune to deal with people who are overtly narcissistic or people with psychopathic tendencies, you're gone. You're gone. Because they will easily cull you out from everyone else and see who is it that I can manipulate, because that is the psychopathic mind. And the reason why I underscore psychopathology is because that is the world that we live in. We know that the corporate sector, the military sector, the political sector, wherever power is, that's where we can find psychopathic traits. We know that's psychological fact. So if you work in any of those places, then be careful about who your CEO is. So that, how can you tell if someone is a psychopath? Well, the first thing is the prerequisite to be a psychopath is that you are an overt narcissist. Now, everyone has narcissistic qualities. We like to talk about ourselves and et cetera, et cetera. It's all part of survival mechanism. But if the only thing you're talking about is yourself, and you're always talking about yourself, and you're diverting the conversation back to yourself, there's a very strong possibility that you are a pathological narcissist, which pathological means sickness. It's a sickness, like it's a mental sickness. So if someone is of that quality, then that should be a red flag to say there is a strong possibility that this kind of person, because that kind of narcissism, pathological narcissism is a red flag for psychopathology. So again, if you're not using your mind, if you just, oh, what a great guy, what a great woman, blah, 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 blah. But hang on a second, this person is just all about them. Where are you in this equation? Oh, I didn't realize that. We've always been like this. Dude, come on. So not using the mind, you're acclimatized this kind of relationship. This is all you know. And off we go. So now with Buddhism, Buddhism is teaching you to step back and see where you are, right? This is where I am. This is where my karma's brought me. Now, do you like where you are? If you like where you are, well, Buddhism isn't for you. You don't need, you're fantastic. You're wonderful. It's great, you know? But if you step back and you don't like where you are and you have a connection with the Dharma, then maybe the Buddha Dharma can actually help you now to get out of that situation, purify that negative karma, and begin actually to move forward, not backwards. That's the huge psychological challenge that you're being asked, right? No one can do that. No one can force you to do that. That's why in Buddhism, everything is voluntary. Do you want to do this? No. Okay, fine. Would you like to try that? No. Okay, fine. Right? You don't feel comfortable with that? No, that's okay, fine. Because you can't force someone to have a certain faith. You can't force someone to change. For those of you who are in relationships, you can't force someone to change, because as soon as you force them, the survival mechanism kicks in and they resist. And there you have conflict all the time, right? And the reason why in that kind of social relationship, the reason why that person is justifiably resisting is because you're being aggressive, you're being dominant. You want it your way because my way is the best way. You're not allowing this person to actually be who they are. So that person justifiably is resisting. And you cornered that person. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Robert. We actually have two pretty long comments. Usually thanks is just like, I just say, yeah, people say thanks. But Cynthia said, that's me, haha. I don't want to choose, get confused thinking. I can relate to. Thank you so much for this wonderful insight. As usual, all the teachings Robert shared are so useful to apply every day. I have noted many important points to keep in mind in difficult situations. Thanks to Tina, so Richard, Eugene, Gary, Cici, and Co for organizing and bringing this talk. And thank you, Cynthia, for enabling this talk as well. You do so much work behind the scenes. Jenny, I really appreciate your direct challenge and kind reminder for us to use more critical thinking and not follow blindly. In that context, how can we approach having faith in beings such as Naga, Dharma protectors, Buddha's retinue? We can't see. Our rationalizing thinking would be so limited and our clear wisdom is yet to be experienced.
How can we, what, sorry?
How can we approach having faith in beings such as the Naga, Dharma protectors, Buddha's retinue? I don't know.
Buddha's retinue.
Retinue. I don't even know what that means. But...
It is the Sangha, the retinue.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That we can't see.
Oh, okay.
Well, no. The Buddha's retinue would be his like Shariputra, Moudgalayan, though Ananda, those that are very, very close. They would be the main retinue. Then basically after that, it would be all the monks and nuns that are just following the Buddha from place to place. That would be the retinue. How can we have, say that again, please?
How can we approach having faith in
how can we approach, yeah, sorry, it's a little bit late in the evening for me. How can we approach, well, first of all, you don't have faith in the Nagas. With all due respect, Nagas, are not something to be venerated. And that's something that in the Jenny, who was asking about what scriptural citations in the Lamrim Chenmo, the chapter on taking refuge, there it specifically says that if you take refuge in non-enlightened entities, in this example, the Nagas, which are just basically a lower form of state of existence, basically, if you take refuge in them, because they still have a deluded mind, they're still under ignorance, right? If sometimes you give them offerings, and if you don't give them offerings, they get angry. right? And when they get angry, you get skin problems, amongst other things, right? For example, when I was in Nepal many years ago, I remember someone telling me the story when we're talking about Nagas, because the whole of the Kathmandu Valley is full of Nagas, because the valley itself was a huge lake eons ago, until Manjushri drained the lake. Anyway, and I was told the story of an American man who was a lumberjack who had cut down many trees and did that for many decades. And he got a very exotic virus that nobody could cure. And so they told him, he went to see some Buddhist specialists and stuff, and they said, well, that's the Naga's got you. That's what's happened. You cut down too many trees, you've disturbed their environment, and they were just defending themselves. You got zapped, right? So he came to Nepal to seek a cure. And from what I heard, he never got a cure. He actually died. They got him, you know? And so no enlightened being would ever do that. Whether you hurt the enlightened being or not, they would never ever cause you to be hurt in any way, shape, or form. So you cannot take refuge in a lower state of existence. So that means worshipping trees, worshipping rocks, and all this kind of, and the entities that live at those places should not be encouraged, because they are more deluded than we are in certain circumstances. More pride, more arrogance, more aggression. And most of those people that exist as tree sprites or ghosts who tamper with people who are on retreat, etc., they themselves were probably monks and nuns in previous lifetimes who were jealous of others and now have taken rebirth as these malevolent entities. And that's how powerful jealousy is. Yes.
I think Jenny clarified her question. She was more talking about the higher beings, such as like Buddha Rizik or Tara and so on. Like having faith in those higher beings, like enlightened beings, having faith in those.
Okay.
How do we approach having faith in, for example, Buddha Rizik or Tara?
Right. Okay. Well, as I said before, earlier on, faith is based on logic and reason. It's not based on, hey, you just meditate on this and away you go and thank you. No. What's going to happen if you do that is that, well, I'll give you another example. Of somebody told me a few years ago, a reliable source, and that was a Chenrezig practitioner, a lady who that was her main practice. Every day she would do so many mantras, and one day she was walking somewhere and a stone fell and hit her foot and bruised her foot. Now she was very upset at Buddha Chenrezig because, like, I'm praying for you every day to protect me, and look what happened. Look, how did you allow this to happen, right? So something's a little bit off here with this particular person, right? So she packed up everything, her shrine, and put it all in the cupboard because Buddha Chenrezig had betrayed her, right? Well, let her down. Then some time later, she met a lama, and she told him, she complained, like, how, look at this. Why did this happen to me? You know, and I spent all these years, millions of mantras and everything. And then the Lama pointed out, he said, have you ever considered the fact that if you hadn't prayed to Buddha Chenrezig, the rock would have hit your head rather than your foot? Oh, out the statue, there are balls, whatever, and off she goes back. So that's a kind of a very Mickey Mouse kind of faith. You know, only when I get something, then it's okay. When I don't get it, well, it doesn't work. That doesn't work. And another example of that is His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about how one Tibetan woman has decided to be a Christian in this lifetime, followed Christ's teaching. But she said, okay, in this life, I'm going to be Christian, but in my next life, I'm going to be a Buddhist. You know, I mean, it's so that means we haven't really, our faith is not based on logic and reason. And the logic and the reason comes from studying the scriptures, talking, getting rid of doubts, contemplating, analyzing, and then observing, and then integrating all that. That's how that comes about. Otherwise, if it's blind faith, well, that's dependent upon our mood, isn't it? Blind faith is basically out of fear. When we do it from rational reasoning, doesn't matter what happens to us, whether we're afraid or whether we are happy, we still have the faith because we understand the teachings. We've integrated.
So how would you link between the rational reasoning and faith in those beings that we can't physically see, for example?
Well, that's
How
what I
would
said.
you-
You would read the scriptures, you would contemplate the necessary points.
Yeah.
And then you would see from your own experience what is working, what isn't working. So for example, now with Buddha Chenrezig, well, okay, very interesting, right? Some of you may be fortunate enough to have a dream to indicate otherwise. That should be validation that this works. Some of you may say, well, hey, Robert, I mean, dude, you're not exactly brown, Tibetan brown, you know, you're not a monk, you know, I mean, how are you doing this? You know, why are you doing this? You know, what's with the hair? You know, what, it just doesn't suit you, you know? And so you may say that, right? But then what we've actually gone through, what, as I said right at the beginning, looking carefully, looking at the words, looking at the meaning, putting your bias aside, etc., etc. You're giving yourself a chance, not me, because I know what works and what doesn't work. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, right? Voluntarily, my own time. Plus, I forgot to bring my mooncake with me for the train trip back. And you know, so I will be suffering on the way back home now. You know, so I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't know it worked. Now the onus is on you to validate whether this works or not. That's your karma. I know what works for me. I know what my teachers have taught me, what I've had discussions with them, etc., etc., etc. Now the onus is on you to do something similar. If you know, that's the only way you can validate this, is to make it real. You have to make it real instantly. So the Buddha's teachings, one of the attributes of the Buddha's teachings is that the Buddha's teaching is personal advice. All the Buddha's teachings are given as personal advice. That's the way you should look at it. Not in competition with everybody. Oh, how many measures did you do? Oh, 10 million. How many did you do? 20 million. Oh, no, that's stock exchange talk. That's corporate world mumbo jumbo. You know, that's not the Dharma, all right? That's why you keep your Dharma practice to yourself. It's got nothing to do with anyone else other than between you and your teacher or whoever you want to, whatever. You don't talk about auspicious dreams. You don't talk about anything. Because if you do, you dilute that. You dilute it. And you may not happen again. So be very, very cautious. And the most overriding effect is that it will give you a sense of pride. Whoa. I had a dream of Chenrezig. Whoa. Who cares?
Jenny had a really great follow-up question. She says, and I'm aware you guys might have questions too, so after this we can maybe come to in person. I think so. Her question is, in that context, how do we discern perception / story making with the truth? So how do we know what we, I guess what she's asking, how do we know what we validating is the truth rather than perception or story making or this is what we hear, therefore this is
Well,
what we see?
how does it affect you? How do you know if you attend a party and someone tells you, well, you know, I've been on the space shuttle, I've climbed Mount Everest, you know, me and Taylor Swift, like this, I got a phone number. How do you know that guy's legit? And I noticed I said guy. How do you know that guy's legit, right? It's just too good to be true. Too good to be true, right? It's just, and how does it make you feel? That's the big thing. How does it make you feel? Like now, right now, do I creep you out? You know? When by talking, like some people, you know, that's what I said, you know, maybe I'm not brown enough for to be teaching the Dharma or something like that, you know. For some people that's the way it should be, you know. And I'm sorry for that. I wish I were, genuinely. But that's not the case. And that goes to show that karma works in different ways. Cause effect, lifetime to lifetime. You know, so how does it make you feel? That's the first thing. That's the first thing. So, you know, we all like to believe big. You know, we live in the corporate world and we think we want the best, you know. So, of course, you want the best. So you want His Holiness the Dalai Lama to give teaching. I sincerely hope you get that, right? But the thing is, we don't have the karma for that. This is as good as it gets. We have the karma to be here together. this is as good as it gets, right? So for those of you who might feel let down, like, oh, geez, you know, can't even get a monk to come in here to give me these teachings, you know? If you, okay, fine, that's cool, right? That's cool. That's got nothing to do with me, right? That's a perception. That's someone else's theoretical perception, let's say. I'll give benefit of the doubt, theoretical perception. Okay, but the thing is, should you have that, right? You still don't understand your karmic situation. This is as good as you get. If you don't take advantage of this situation, what makes you think you're going to actually receive teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama in person? If you want that, create the cause for it. And that's doable, right? So you dedicate the merit, you make the prayers, etc., etc. I want this, I want to do that. And you slowly you get to there. And I sincerely hope that happens for a lot of people. So this is the beginning that creates the seed that you'll get deeper and deeper into that subject and receive, you know, hopefully that those empowerments that will make sense to you, that will help you to progress onto the path to enlightenment a lot more quickly. Unlike that nun who asked one of my teachers, who had the proper motivation, if you remember.
Jenny, hope that answers your question. And Cynthia, I'm sorry, I'll get back to you. It's just if anyone in person has any questions, I know we've not had a chance here.
Is collective karma a real thing? And if so, how do we avoid that?
How do you avoid it?
Or can we avoid it?
So you're implying that collective karma is a bad thing?
No, I mean, you know, there are actions that can happen through collective karma that could be a bad thing. So is it
Well,
something that...
everyone is here. This is collective karma.
Yeah, but as a nation, there are things that a nation could do which could be bad.
Yeah.
Like a war, say.
Well, it's difficult because you need everyone to believe in the law of cause and effect. If they want that to change, then you need everyone, or at least 1% of the population needs to have a strong belief in the karma in order to generate the ripple effect that will actually change that nation. Now, living in a Western country based on Christian values, I don't think that's going to happen overnight, right? Because you're going to need everyone to actually say, okay, we're going to actually, this is bad. We can see what's going to happen. We don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to participate. And that, you can see that in the Arab Spring, for example, that happened some years ago. That was, people just got fed up and just, there was this impetus of people saying, okay, we just want to change. And that everybody else got on the bandwagon and got together and saying, that's the way we're going to do it, right? So that's people without believing in, traditionally anyway, in an Islamic countries that don't believe in the law of cause and effect as we understand it from a Buddhist point of view. But nevertheless, from a social point of view, they decided we want change. So we're going to collectively work to one goal, right? That can work here. That can work here. But it'll have to be, like always, something catastrophic has to happen before people start thinking like that, unfortunately. Very difficult.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the session, Robert.
Cheers, Eugene.
I just wondering about, in situations like injuries or illnesses, did you mean that it is totally due to karma? Because I also heard like teachings that the Buddha taught that karma is just one of the kind of factors of causality. And there are some, other factors of causality that
Such
are not
as?
actually karma.
What other
I
causes?
think one of them is like bija. I think it's like natural laws. So something's just happened
Well,
just due to
the reason-
natural causes. Like maybe some DNA just doesn't replicate properly, and
Well,
that causes a cancer. For
The reason why we're born in the environment we're born is due to karmic consequences, karmic causes. So everything is really karma, everything, right? So the thoughts that we're having, I'm having this thought. Now this thought is based on a previous thought, that previous thought on that thought, that thought, that thought, that thought, whatever. It's almost like juggling. And the more you juggle them, the more solidified they become. And those thoughts seem to be solid. And due to that solid structure, that creates a physiological reaction within my body. Through that physiology, I actually now react towards those thoughts because I think they're solid, right? So all illnesses are based on the karmic consequences, but they may not be, like, for example, you know, the actions today that I'm experiencing are not the result of something that I just did an hour or a day ago. They're previous days and months and years and lifetimes ago, right? So all actions that we're doing now will not necessarily, instant karma is not actually something that's very, very common, right? It's actually rare that instant karma would happen, that you would get instant result of something that you've actually done now. It's going to happen then. It usually happens either sometime later in this life, definitely in next lifetime, immediately the life over, or some future lifetime, 1,000,000 years from now. Right? So this is the result of something that happened way, way, way back, right? And the headache that you have now is the result of maybe some purification of something that you've done, right? So you're getting a headache now rather than a broken leg or dying in a car accident. For those who do have a broken leg or do die in a car accident, well, that's obviously a sign of that's gross karma instantly ripening, or not instantly, but ripening because of something that they have that has occurred to them. So what is it that I have done in order to correct or allow me to be reborn here? What is it that it's allowing me to suffer? These are the kind of philosophical questions that we have to ask without punishing ourselves. That's the psychological challenge, without punishing yourself. You're not bad. You're not evil. You're not no good. You're not hopeless or whatever. No. That's why I said you can be cleaning toilets for a living and you could still be happy because you realize I'm in control of the situation. It's just that other people, social peer group pressure is making me feel bad. Racism, sexism, misogyny, etc., etc. These are all cultural, how do you say, cultural imaginings. They don't exist on their own. This is what our culture has brought up. And because one culture is dominant over another, then that becomes the law, or that becomes the style of the time, if you like. Whether it's right or wrong, it's up to people to decide. It's a mental concept. Racism, sexism, gender, these are all mental constructs. They don't exist independently, autonomously somewhere else. Why? Because other cultures have different concepts in this world, have different concepts about culture, have race, sex, etc., gender and all that. Because if it was the way we say it is in our culture, then it should be universally accepted, but it's not. So therefore, these are mental constructs. And if it's a mental construct, it can be deconstructed, even if you just do it by yourself. So it's up to you to find your independence and happiness. Right? So the Buddha's teachings, even though we follow all the ethical conduct and all that kind of stuff, they should not be regarded as imprisoning you, right? They should be regarded as liberating you. Because the more vows and commitments that I follow, the clearer my walking on the path to enlightenment becomes. My imprisonment is actually doing what everyone else is doing, which we think is freedom, but it's not, because you're only creating the negative karma that other people are doing. Due to peer group pressure, hey, you know, I'm going to put someone else down because, you know, they're skinny, they're fat, they're this, they're that, whatever. Let's make fun of them because that's our group, you know, and you're bad. So now someone is using your mind and you allow them to do that due to peer group pressure. That's how complicated this is. That's why samsara will exist for a long, long, long time and has existed for a long time, unfortunately. So by even just thinking about this, you are purifying negative karma. You're accumulating virtue, right? Let alone now going and reading the books and slowly talking about this and slowly changing and moving forward and not go sliding backwards. Yep. Any more questions?
Are there any questions online?
There
I
are,
think
yeah.
ask it online, ask it.
Okay, sure. There's actually two more questions and they're all follow-up questions. So we have one from Cynthia.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story. So, interesting question / story. So Cynthia says, Robert, are there Naga kingdoms? One yogi shared this in his book, that there were blue aura ball in air and the Naga came to ask suggestions for the problem the Naga was facing in his or her realm. Seems this incident happened in Himalayas where the yogi resided and practiced. The teacher that shared in his book is Sri M. He has mentioned that this incident happened when he was young, getting trained under the yogi Babaji.
Mhm.
They say the original Baba who lives near the Himalayas.
I'm sure that is true. I'm sure that is true. I mean, you know, there are, in Tibetan tradition, there are things called the Bayuls, which are like what we would call like a hidden kingdom, like the Hollywood Shangri-La, you know. Bayuls, you have to have a strong karmic connection. I think, what's his name? I forgot his name. I'm sorry. I forgot the Rinpoche's name. But there's another story of the 13th Dalai Lama, who went to Manjushu Mountain, Utai-san, in China on pilgrimage, and he went. He decided, you know, he was walking around. They were doing the pilgrimage trail, and all of a sudden, all the attendants lost the Dalai Lama, the 13th Dalai Lama. The current one is the 14th, as you know. And they lost him. They couldn't find him. They ran around everywhere. Where did he go? Some hours later, that evening, His Holiness shows up to the relief of all the monks. And they said, where did you go? What happened, Your Holiness? What? He said, what are you talking about? I just went to the temple. There was a temple over there, and I just did some offerings, meditation, whatever. And they all went over. They go, there's no temple there. He's go, no, there is a temple there. He goes, no, that doesn't exist. And what had happened was what we would now call would be like an interdimensional split. For those who have the karma, there would be this kind of interdimensional lapse, or as some people would say, there's a bug in the matrix or something like that, which is, I don't really particularly believe that, but anyway. And so His Holiness went there to this temple that existed in another dimension, you know, and he made prayers, whatever, and because he had the karma for that. Now, okay, fairy tale. You got to be there. You got to know these people. This happens actually quite commonly if you're talking about people who are meditating on a very, very high level of existence, you know. And this is one of the attributes of the mind, that the mind does begin to have access to interdimensional possibilities. So this thing about the Nagas, yeah, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, and the Nagas, if they want help, they will ask for help. For example, Nagarjuna, who was a very, very, very famous Mahasiddha from Nalanda Monastery, he used to be a king of the Nagas in a previous lifetime. And he received the perfection of wisdom scriptures that were held in custody by the Nagas until a ripe time would come. And that ripe time was when Nagarjuna was born. So that Nagarjuna received the perfection of wisdom teachings from them. They were holding it and keeping it and protecting it from degenerating. And they gave them those teachings to Nagarjuna, who was prophesied by the Buddha himself, that he will come and restore the Mahayana tradition. And that's exactly what happened. So Nagarjuna himself received, if you like, assistance and help. And I think Nagarjuna himself went to the Naga realm to retrieve those teachings. Okay, again, fairy tale. Well, when you first hear about it, yeah, okay. But when you begin to delve a little bit into the nature of mind and reality, it's as normal as having a pizza on a Friday night. You know, that's it, yeah.
Except instead of pizza, we have Nagas.
Naga, yeah, well.
Another question actually from Jenny. She first said, thank you very much, Robert.
Yep.
And I think she still trying to understand. So how do we rely on our feelings to check in, to have faith? I think, are you able to provide some more guidance as to like what, like, you know, we also have feelings arising that just comes out of like our natural being.
Mm.
So what's the difference between like these feelings that we check in that will be just a reason of feelings versus something that will point us to the truth?
So you try to ascertain what are genuine feelings over non-genuine feelings, is that right?
What's delusion versus what's actually reality in terms of checking with our feelings as well?
Well, you've been asked to, because you do, you know, by the time you actually develop faith and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be an older person, right? So you're actually, to begin with, you've been asked to actually just take the Buddha's advice to begin with, you know, and to just accept things for what they are. And then as you go, you test these things, right? Otherwise, if you did it, if you were doing the real and full on checking and spent 10, 20 years doing that, that's a large slice of one's life. So as you go, you're constantly looking and checking. Okay, how do I feel about it? I don't feel comfortable about that. Why? Well, because of A, B, C, D. Well, where do those come from? Well, it comes from the way I was brought up. Okay. Oh, I didn't expect that. Where did that come from? Well, that's the psychological aspect of the Buddhism. It's asking you to look within yourself. So where does that, in Jenny's case, where does that kind of thinking come from? Insecurity within yourself, self-doubt. Where does that self-doubt come from? From your life? How? Relationship, the way you were brought up? What's going on? That's how I would tackle it psychologically speaking, because if you build some kind of, you're trying to build faith on your own insecurity, if you're insecure about yourself, if you have doubts about your self-ability constantly, and then now you're trying to put the Dharma on top of that, that's going to be like hot butter. I mean, you're just going to, the faith is just going to dissolve, you know? So you have to use the psychology, check your psychology first as to why you're having those thoughts about yourself, about anything, right? Or for example, why don't I trust people? Why don't I trust people? And maybe that's because we've been in a relationship that's been untrusting, you know? And then you have to realize, oh, wow, how can I actually overcome that? And that's why a lot of people who are not trusting, when they come into the Buddha Dharma, they realize, oh, you're an authority figure. I got a problem with people in authority. I don't like you. And that's a normal reaction. But the thing is, in psychology, we call that transference. You're transferring your feelings towards someone else that they don't possess, right? But because of what you're carrying, the psychological baggage you're carrying, I don't like you. I don't know why. I just don't like it. As soon as that happens, you can't teach someone like that, because you take one step forward to help them, they take 10 steps back psychologically. Okay, so in a lot of cases, 9 out of 10, I would say, from my experience, a lot of people need to check that about themselves. Okay, that's very, very difficult. You can all just go now and come back and I'll see you in 50 years. That's how, you know, so the more what you have to realize is that you're not alone in this. Everyone is experiencing this, right? And the more you begin to find the answers to this, the quicker it will be for you.
Hope that helps, Jenny. And also, I just want to say you're definitely not alone in this. Like, doubt is one of the hindrances and so on. And obviously facing the things that we can't see. I think all of us probably have a journey to.
I just want to say that before ever, I know people are getting ready to go, and it is late, I'm sorry, and there's so many things, but I just want to say I have some cards here with my email on it. So if you have any questions, these are specifically designed to make sure that everybody gets to ask a question, everybody, you know, so you can email me as many times you want, whatever. But the only option, the only proviso is that it have to be Dharma related. I'm not a marriage counselor, okay, or anything of that nature. Everything is going to be done through the perspective of the Buddha Dharma. So unless you want to do it through some outside of that, you need to see a professional psychologist. Okay, so if you wants to take one and you can go home or whatever, or you can ask me now. You go.
I've also posted the screenshot online.
You got it online, yeah. So if you want to go, just let me know. Go. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great
See you next time.
session.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for coming,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys, you can ask me later if you want. So thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers. Good night.
Thank you for coming.
So yeah, any other questions?
There is this type of karma called ahosi karma where you cancel the karmas out. Is it like you save one person's life and then you kill one person's life and then it sort of cancels out, or is there a way?
It's very, very complicated. It's not black and white. Karma is not black and white. If you're saving someone else's life, then there's a good chance that, you know, that person has saved someone else's life, the previous life, right? So now it's your turn to repay and you have a strong karmic connection, right? So that's how that works. But generally, right? But the actual specifics of that, a lot more profound, right? And the other thing is, you could say like, well, you know, as soon as I do something, it ripens and it cancels it out. I've purified my negative karma. Well, yes and no, because a lot of people will say, okay, well, if I go to hell and I do, you know, and I, you know, whatever happens in hell, I suffer in hell, I burn off that karma, and that means I'm free. No, because when you go to hell or in a lower state of existence, you can be born as an animal, a hungry ghost, whatever. In those states of existence, you're actually creating negative karma as well. So you're being born there, and now you're actually creating karma by hurting someone else in the hell realm, or as an animal, or as a ghost, or a hungry ghost, or whatever it is. And now you're compounding that. At the same time, you're purifying your negative karma. So it's like, for example, you get a new job and you go to an office, right? And you don't know all the people there, and you think, oh, I don't, you know, I need the money, so, but I don't like the environment. I don't like the people that have, these are really funny people here, you know, but I need to work. So you go there, and the longer you stay there, the more you actually become like those people. You adopt the behavior, you got to fit in. So you got your social group, you start talking like they do, and soon you're there 20 years, right? And there's no difference between you and those people anymore. So what happened to all, you know, I'm not gonna participate. I don't want to, you know, I'm just going to be by myself. I don't want to be this, whatever. In 20 years, there's no difference between you and them. Because that's your karma. You're supposed to be where you are. If you don't like where you are, now you have to do something about it to get out of it. That's where the Chenrezig purification comes in, for example. And the thing that I didn't mention was that in order to purify, or didn't have time to mention, was in order to purify any heavy karmic karma, including murder, Adolf Hitler himself could purify all his negative karma, believe it or not, but it will take an extremely, extremely long time. And in order to really purify something is the four opponent powers, which is, as I mentioned during the Chenrezig practice, which is you have strong regret, what you have done. You have strong reliance. In this case, Buddha Chenrezig, you're taking refuge in Buddha Chenrezig, right? So your negative, even if you don't know what taking refuge is, your negative karma now is forcing you. You know what you've done wrong. So you're looking to Buddha Chenrezig, you're the only one that I have a karmic connection with that can help me. So it's forcing you to take refuge in Buddha Chenrezig in some way, shape or form. Then you're promising to the best of my ability, I will try not to do this again. That's very important to say, I will try not to do this again. Because I doubt very much that everybody who walks out that door is not going to do anything bad ever again. That's not going to happen. So you can't make promises you can't keep. You have to say, I will try to the best of my ability not to do this again. Right? That's why this kind of practice, Chenrezig practice, purification practice is done ideally every day at the end of the day, because at the end of the day is when you've finished doing all what mumbo jumbo that you've done throughout the day, interacting with people, saying things bad, thinking bad things, and at the end of the day, you purify that. If you did that every day for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you will notice something positive. You will be a different person by that stage. Something will stick and you will change for the better. And in that one practice, as simple as it may appear, in that one practice, generating practice, all the Buddha's teachings are there. All the Buddha's, which I can't get into now, but just take my word for it. They're all there into that one practice. And for those of you who may know or have heard about the Kala Chakra Tantra, for example, when the Buddha initially gave the Kala Chakra Tantra, when that's given, when His Holiness gives the teaching and other very high lamas, His Holiness Kakal Rinpoche, for example, it's usually a 3 or 4 day event, right? But when the Buddha taught that, he snapped his fingers and it happened just like that. Right? So it's a similar thing here. All the Buddha's teachings are in this one Chenrezig practice, even though we're not conscious of it. And so when we do it correctly, we receive the full battalion, the full force of that. And therefore, those people who have sincerely done it, those people who really want to do it, that's why it's possible, just possible, to have auspicious signs that this is actually work for you. Should you have that, that is your validation. You don't need me to be talking for 5 or 6 hours, telling you why this is good, why this is bad. Your practice validates itself. Any more question?
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is just that how do we practice understanding the karma but not being attached to it? Because a lot of our learnings today are about how we can purify off bad karma or how we can, I guess, gain more good karma. And I feel that if I keep this in mind every day, I'm doing everything with expectation of the outcome, that I'm doing this not purely because for the intention of doing it, but because I want to gain good karma or get rid of bad karma in some way. So how do we understand karma and use it in a wholesome way, but not increasing our attachment to it?
Well, you do that by meditating on death and impermanence. You do that by the previous subjects that are in the Lamrim Chenmo, which is, taking refuge, understanding this precious human rebirth. You do that by understanding that we can't use a worldly mind. And when we say accumulating karma, it's not like you're collecting money or interest or anything like that. That's probably a cultural thing. People in different cultures would perceive karma and merit in a different way. For example, I know one of my teachers, a Chinese lady, not to appear racist, but she, from her culture, she thought that if I dedicate my merit to everyone else, there'll be none left for me. That was her cultural thing, you see. So it depends on what cultural perspective you come from. She was equating it to money, and that's wrong. That's wrong, right? And so that's someone who has a miserly mind. That's someone who, it's just me, 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 me. So in this case, they're using the Dharma I'm just accruing the Dharma for myself. No, I don't want to share it with you, right? So that kind of person potentially will be born as a Naga. Miserliness, for example, Arya Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, people who make promises and don't keep those promises are creating the karma to be reborn as a Naga.
Oh.
So never, ever, ever say to someone, yeah, hey, let's do lunch. Yeah, right. And how many times do you say that to someone? Thousands and thousands. And do you ever have a lunch with them? No. Because it's a social thing to say, make a promise you don't keep. I personally never understood that, because if you tell me we're going to have lunch, okay, hey, when will we have it?
Yeah.
Dude, don't you get it? I don't want to see you again. Well, why didn't you tell me?
I also didn't get that for the longest time. If I came to Australia.
So you never make promises you can't keep. You never make promises you can't keep. And so a lot of that may be to do with a cultural context as well. From my experience, I've seen that. And that people associate, and that someone like that needs to be looking at contemplating death. If you have a miserly mind, then death is the ideal meditation subject for you, because you have to realize you're going to lose this, right? Now, if you've got that pot of gold, right, you have to understand now that if you invest that wisely by helping the poor, helping monks and nuns so they can teach the Dharma, buying Dharma books, giving them to others, for example, so that you too can benefit as well, giving clothes and food to the Sangha, to the, and et cetera, especially those, you know, even serious lay practitioners, people who want to do retreats, but they can't afford the money or whatever, you know, sponsoring them. They don't necessarily have to be monks or nuns, you know. That's the best way to invest your karma, all right? So in a future lifetime, you'll be like that woman, an Afro-American woman in America. She has this big hairdo, like an afro, but she has this white hair, just this on the crown of her head, just here. I think she may be still alive, I'm not sure. She used to be a Buddhist scholar at Stanford or somewhere like that. And she just had this white hair. And they told her, they said, oh, in a previous lifetime, this is where in a previous lifetime, you contributed money for the establishment of Samye Monastery. Samye Monastery was the first monastery ever built in Tibet back in 700 or 800 AD. And at that time, Guru Rinpoche himself blessed you by putting his hand on your head. That's where you have that white mark. Okay, another fairy tale? Maybe. But why is this woman now a scholar, you know, a Buddhist scholar, for example? Where did that karma come from? So that's an example of someone who contributed as a benefactor to the building of a monastery. It doesn't mean you have to give all your money away, right? It doesn't mean you have to be a beggar. It just means that you change your mind. I'm changing my mind from a miserly mind. Now I'm going to give something because I want to give it. I'm giving this. I don't want anything in return. That in itself takes years and years of practice. I'm giving this, but I don't want anything in return. And as I said, I don't think you read it in the blurb to this teaching, you know, the hardest practice to perfect is being mindful of what we say when we're in a group of people and being mindful what we think when we're at home privately. Has anybody ever perfected that yet? No. And you want to go and meditate in the mountains? Think about it, you know, being mindful of what we say publicly and being mindful of what we think privately. Wow. There's a big psychological challenge there, right? If you can master those two things, you're halfway there. Okay, so you don't need to go on great pilgrimages. That would be wonderful. You don't need to do any fancy practices. That would be wonderful, right? The biggest thing you have to do is look within, right? That's you want Shangri-La? It's right here. You want Mount Everest? It's right here. You want Bodh Gaya? It's right here. You want the Dalai Lama? He's right here, right? That's it. That's it. And the only problem is that we're too preoccupied with someone else, right? So be very careful about that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so if you want anybody, if you want my email, if you want any questions, please feel free. These were specifically designed for that. Everybody good? Would you like? Sorry, what's your name?
Imandi.
Imandi. Hey, Imandi. How's it going?
I think this is all done. We're
Okay.
at the end of the session. Thanks everyone online.
Thank you, everyone.
End the session now. Have a good week, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.